Hey everybody, we're going to do a step-by-step video on how to restore an acrylic aquarium that is scratched and hazed out. If you guys don't mind hitting the subscribe button and the notification bell, that would be awesome. Again, it's a step-by-step. Let's start now. Check it out. Here is the acrylic aquarium, and you can just see how bad it is. This is pretty hazed out. Obviously, when you put water in there, it makes a difference. But this is pretty hazed out. Look at that. Look at that. We're going to do our best to fix this today. One of the first things, or the first thing you want to do is get this all rinsed off. Try to get as much of the dust and grime and all that stuff out of there. See, you can see the difference when it's wet. It makes a huge difference as far as the haze, but you can see that dirtiness there. That'll come off on the next step. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get the water out now. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and flip it around. We're doing the inside first. It's the easiest. To start with is the inside. So we're going to lean it down, and we want it to be wet. So we're going to use 1000 grit. You could get this at your auto parts store, and then 2000 grit. So we're going to go coarse to fine, and we're going to start now. Okay, get your sander, and then we're going to go in and just go in to one direction. And again, this is to help pull or to smooth out any scratches. All right, let's get started, guys. So again, keep the acrylic wet and just take your time, go over it multiple times. It's gonna haze out more by doing this, but you're smoothing out the surface, which is important. All right, so bottom is done. So there you can see all of the grime and all that coming off the acrylic there. All right, everybody, quick disclaimer. Since this project does require water and electric, please proceed with caution and by your own discretion. I am in no way responsible for anything. Again, proceed with caution and by your own discretion, since there is water and electric on this project. So another thing, guys, I should have made sure my surface was level, which I didn't. So I was having water pool up inside the tank while I was sanding it. So again, make sure you have a level surface. Rinsing it down now. Now we're going to do the 2000 grit. So again, this is going to take some time, and when you buy your sandpaper, make sure that you buy enough to where you're going to be able to get your entire project done. Obviously, the bigger the tank, the more you're going to want, because you just want to make sure that the sandpaper, with it being as fine as it is fresh, so it keeps removing all of the deep scratches and things like that out of the acrylic. And rinse off every once in a while to try to get some of that gunk out of there. And I know I said it once and I'll say it again, I can't stress enough, make sure that the surface stays wet. It's very, very important. Also, doing the corners is kind of tough, so be prepared for that. Can you guys see these right here? These are some nice deep scratches. So the sanding, the wet sanding, is to try to help minimize this as much as possible so that the polishing can try to do its best job. Now you're going to want to put a towel down so that it doesn't slide on the table and ruin it. So again, keep it wet, rock and roll. Now we're working on the top of the aquarium, the outside of it. I definitely recommend starting from the inside and then do the outside last. And the reason why is it's a lot easier to do the outside of the tank than it is to do the inside of the tank. It is kind of tough to do the inside just because you have limited space and whatnot, but you can see here, that I'm sanding and I keep getting the hose and adding more water. Right now we're getting a nice rinse, and what I was doing was checking to see where there was any scratches that I had missed. Then again, keeping it wet. Keeping the hose on at a very slow pace was nice because all I had to do was just pick up the hose and, you know, let it get water on the surface of the tank. So, as you can see right now, how much pressure I got in the hose. Now there were some spots on the aquarium where I did apply a good amount of pressure. Just, you know, my theory was that if I used more pressure, it would kind of help really smooth out any big scratches. You know, as you can see by this part of the video, I was using 2 hands on a lot of spots just to really kind of keep a nice firm amount of pressure on the tank. Also, be prepared to get wet with the amount of water and all that stuff like that. You're definitely going to get wet by the hose. That is for sure. Also, you're going to have some spots where you might need to do it by hand versus with a sander. I found that especially on the inside of the tank because some of the corners were just really hard to get otherwise. And if you have any residue or gunk on the tank, I recommend taking it off before you start this process so that you're not running into issues later.
Alright guys, so now we're doing the 2000 grit on the outside to get it that nice fine polish, or nice to get the fine stuff out.
Now if you're feeling ambitious and you want to do more than even I did, you can start off again with the 1000 and then you can go to 1500 grit and then you could finish it off with 2000. I just happened to grab the 2 because I figured that'd be good enough for this particular project, and you will see here in just a bit how well it worked for me on this project. Yeah, like I said, trying to get the inside is definitely a tough task. That is for sure. So again, to kind of do a recap, what you want to do is go to your local auto parts store. You can buy some wet dry sandpaper. You can get 1000 grit, 1500 grit, 2000 grit. You want to work your way from 1000 up to 2000 so that you're smoothing out your surface as much as possible. If you have a palm sander, an electric sander like I'm using here, it makes your life way easier. And then gloves. I always like to use gloves when I'm doing projects like this. So that's going to be the main stuff as far as the sanding is concerned. Once we're going to be moving on to the polishing, again, you're going to need some items there. Yeah, I'm doing this step-by-step video sped up because obviously we don't want to watch hours and upon hours of footage of doing this, but just to kind of give you a perspective of the time it takes to do this. Can you imagine getting a 500-gallon tank for next to nothing and all you have to do is polish it like this? That would be epic.
Okay, so we got it all sanded, and what we need to do now is get it nice and clean with a foam sponge so it doesn't scratch it any more than it already is, and then we're going to polish.
So now that the sanding is done, again, you want to wash it really well, because after this and after it's washed and dried, we are going to be moving on to the polishing stage. And again, use a foam sponge, get it as clean as you can, and then dry it off with microfiber cloths.
Okay, so we got all of the sanding done, and it should look something like this. It's going to be hazy, but the point is you're doing that to remove the heavy scratches. Like here, I didn't get those ones out. These are deep. It would take a lot to get that out. But again, yep, this is what it's going to look like once it's all sanded. All right, before we get to polishing, I wanted to go over what we used again. Now, for the sanding, we used 1000 and 2000 grit wet dry sandpaper. I got this from Napa, so you could get it from your auto parts store. And again, you need it to be the wet dry. And that is because obviously you need to have the acrylic wet while you're sanding it. And you'll do the 1000 grit and then the 2000 grit and then microfiber cloths. Microfiber cloths, because anything else will scratch the acrylic. So microfiber, go ahead and wipe the entire tank down inside and out once it's done being sanded. Then you can move on to polishing. Now, as far as the polishing kit goes, I used Novus when I did my big aquarium. So 3 is going to be heavy, 2 is fine, and 1 is like the polish shine last little bit. So you start with 3, then you go to 2, and then you go to 1. Now, what I got was this little polishing kit that allows you to attach it to a drill. And I am using an electric drill because you have that constant speed. No battery is going to be dying on you while you do this. Now, there's 2 different pads in here. So that's what you want, is you want those pads to apply the polish and work on the acrylic. All right, so let's go ahead and take this guy apart. The packaging. So again, we got our 2 pads here. There's also some polishing bonnets. I mean, again, this is for cars. And again, I got this at Napa. And then here's this bit, this. So a little tip my brother told me, if you're going and you're trying to go and just, you know, tighten it, a lot of times you could possibly strip. So if you put it on there and you go backwards, you'll hear it click. And once it clicks, you'll see right now. There. Now it's seated in place, and then you just twist it on. So a way to avoid stripping out your bits, screws, all that kind of different stuff. Then we're going to go ahead and use this. Gets attached on like so. Okay, so looking at the number 3 here, when you read the directions in the back, it says about doing back and forth strokes on it to remove the big scratches. Now, we just sanded this with 2000 grit sandpaper. There's not going to be any big scratches on here. Everything's going to be really small. So we're not going to end up using this for now. We're going to test it with just a fine scratch remover, which this one you apply circular, which is where the drill comes into play. All right, so we're going to start by applying it on the actual pad here like this. Just to kind of get some on there. And then now, let's do it. One change that I would have done if I had it was, since the opening to the tank was pretty small, having a electric drill that was a little smaller would probably have been a lot easier to get in some of the spots. But again, yeah, you want to just get the Novus polish all over the inside of the tank and then just let the drill do the work. You can apply pressure if you'd like. I go lightly and I apply pressure. I kind of just how I feel at that moment. But this is the fun part, because you really start to see how all that time and effort you put into sanding it down is going to be paying off because of the polish. If you were feeling, again, ambitious and you wanted to use number 3, you know, you would probably want to apply that by hand with, you know, a rag, and go in that frontward and backward and side to side motion like it says on the back of the container. And then after you would wipe that down with, again, microfiber cloth, only use microfiber cloth, you would then move on to the step that we are currently doing. Be prepared, it is going to take a little bit of time to wipe all of the polish out, because
Sometimes it splatters in the spots you don't see them, or take a little bit of elbow grease to get them out. All right, on to the outside of the tank now that the inside's done. And this is where it gets super awesome and super fun, because the inside's done. Any outside surface that you do is really going to show how well this technique works, because the inside's clean, so you're really going to get that perspective. As you can see, look at the difference already. Again, see how much wiping? Again though, it's worth it. So now we're doing the other side of the tank, and on here I was applying a good amount of pressure just because I wanted to try to, get it as polished as possible. And as you can see, look at that, guys. Look at that. Unreal. I mean, you guys seen how hazy it was. Then again, you could hit up to top if you want, like we are now. I know I said it, and I'll say it again. Microfiber cloths, guys. Microfiber cloths. And a foam buffing pad like we're using here. So one suggestion I would make, if you have something heavy to put on the top of the tank, obviously put a towel down and then something heavy like some lumber, or if you have a rock or some brick or something, just to help hold the tank in place. As you can see, I'm not able to apply a lot of pressure like I'd like because the tank keeps sliding across the table. So that is definitely something to consider. I wish that I had. And again, now we're just back to wiping this thing down, taking your time, checking for spots. Believe me, it's worth it in the end.
So the finishing touches is going to be number one. It's the plastic clean and shine. I'm going to do it on the outside. You can see anti-fog and dust repellent and all that stuff. If you want to do this on the inside, you can, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse out the inside really well and then let it dry, and then I'm gonna call that good enough for the inside. But we could go ahead and spray the outside for now.
All right, now applying this on the outside of the tank. You can do it in the inside if you'd like as well, but regardless, what you're gonna wanna do after is turn the tank upside down and spray the inside with water really well to rinse out any excess residue.
Check it out, guys. We are completely done, and what a difference. I mean, look at that. Is it perfect? No, but you can see clear through this thing. Before, you sure couldn't. Look at this. Look at that. So awesome. So now if you could see here, there's a little bit of haze like right in that area, or little spots that didn't quite come out. I don't know if you guys could see, but there's this little bit of scratch right here. Is it perfect? No, but I mean, you got to tell me that is incredible for what condition it was in before. And when you fill that up with water, you're not going to see any of that stuff. Man, looks pretty good. I mean, obviously it's not going to be perfect, but it looks pretty good in my opinion. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. It is a time consumer, but here's the thing. If you find a deal on an acrylic tank, because here's the thing, acrylic aquariums are expensive. They're really expensive. They cost a lot of money. But sometimes you can find deals out there where someone's letting go a massive aquarium for next to nothing. But it's like, oh, it's all scratched and stuff. But check it out. You guys can do that because it's easy, and possibly have an awesome aquarium for a fraction of the cost. So anyway,
Comment down below, what do you guys think of how the tank turned out? Like, share, subscribe. If you could hit the notification bell, that'd be awesome, guys. Stay tanked.